Thank you for joining this dental learning webinar sponsored by Align Technology. I'm Philip Brakebill, Director of Continuing Education. Our distinguished presenters, Dr. Terry Codington and Dr. Christina Blacher, are with us to help instill confidence in providing dental care in the office despite new rules in relation to COVID-19. Since most offices have reopened, many are faced with new workflows and barriers to overcome. Doctors Codington and Blacher will share their personal experiences since reopening and cover new techniques for scheduling and navigating treatment planning conversations with patients. Virtual appointments, new infection control requirements, staff management, and overall office workflow will be covered in order for dentists to feel comfortable when returning to practice. Dr. Terry Codington is a resident of both California and Hawaii. He performs general dentistry in his private practice, Aloha Dental Group, in Silicon Valley, California, and also provides Invisalign care for patients at Smile World Orthodontics, a group practice in the Hawaiian Islands. He has practiced on Maui, Oahu, and the Big Island over the last 22 years. Dr. Codington has been practicing in both private and group practice settings for over 30 years and is currently a Diamond Invisalign provider, treating approximately 200 Invisalign cases per year. Dr. Codington is also an active member of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, American Academy of Clear Aligners, the ADA, and CDA. Dr. Codington is happily married with 2 teenage boys and enjoys being an active world traveler and engaging in sports such as surfing and snowboarding. Dr. Christina Blacher graduated from Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, with a Bachelor of Arts degree in chemistry. She received her Doctor of Dental Medicine degree from Midwestern University in Glendale, Arizona. She started in private practice in Manchester, Connecticut, while her husband completed an endodontic residency at UConn Health in Farmington, Connecticut. After 3 years in Connecticut, Dr. Blacher relocated to the Dallas, Texas area, where she is in private practice in Allen, Texas. She is most passionate about Invisalign and cosmetic treatments, and she has extensive training in the growing field of dentistry and stays up to date with the latest advances in dental technology. Dr. Blacher became a dentist to change lives, including the lives of other dentists. She prides herself on creating a positive professional community united to help one another. If you have questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A window on your screen. As many as possible will be answered during the course of the presentation. If you experience a technical problem, type a note in the Q&A window and a technician will help resolve it. This webinar offers 1 continuing education credit. To ensure you receive your credit, please stay until the webinar has concluded. Early departures will not receive credit. Your certificate of completion will be emailed to you within 2 weeks. Thank you again for joining us, and now I turn it over to the doctors.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Christina Blacher. I am joined by my counterpart, Dr. Terry Codington. We're excited. Hi, Terry.
Hey, Chris.
We're excited to share with you all our presentation today called New Workflows to Help Doctors Grow Despite New Rules. This is a really new world we're living in out here, and we've both had to make some changes in our practice. Some things have worked, some things haven't worked, but we are excited to share with you all what we've been through and hopefully give you a little insight into some things that we have learned. So quick little disclosure for both of us. We are both independent consultants for Align Technology, and all patients shown in the presentation has proper consent. All right, I'll do my little intro first, a little bit about me. I'm originally from Indiana. I went to college at Indiana University. I then did dental school at Midwestern University in Glendale, Arizona. That is actually where I met my husband. He's also a dentist. He decided to do his endo residency in Connecticut at UConn. And so we moved to Connecticut for 3 years. I was in private practice up there. He was a resident. After Connecticut, we decided to move to Dallas, Texas. That is where I currently have a private practice. I've been here for about 2.5 years. I am a platinum provider for Invisalign. I'm a member of Align faculty. I love teaching and mentoring other dentists. And Queen of Invisalign is my Instagram page if you care to follow along. All right, Terry, go for it.
Chris, you're such a rock star. Okay, I'm Terry Codington. I'm also a dentist, obviously, and I have a private practice here in Silicon Valley in California, where I am today, called Aloha Dental Group. I also work in a group practice setting in Hawaii on the Big Island for Smile World Orthodontics, where I exclusively just do Invisalign treatments. I went to UC Santa Barbara, graduated from dental school in San Francisco at UOP. My Instagram is Dr. Terry Codington. I'm an Invisalign provider, and like Chris, I'm part of the Align Tech Global faculty, and we're really excited to bring you some cool new information here today. So take it away, Chris.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to share with you all what happened in my practice when we went through COVID and we went through a shutdown. So I find this comical. This little thing I got off of a news channel, this was what we saw the week before everything happened. And it said, heads up, this week there's a time change, there's a full moon, and this week ends with Friday the 13th. And I remember everyone was like, oh no, this is going to be a crazy week. Like, who knows what's going to happen? But little did we know what we were actually in store for. So that was Friday, March 13th. I was actually giving a lecture in Philadelphia and everything just shut down. I was concerned I couldn't even get home. It was just chaos. I know everyone remembers this weekend. Tuesday, March 17th was the last day in my office. I remember it was St. Patrick's Day and nobody cared. Nobody even knew what was going on. We were closing down. Our staff was asking us what was happening, and we had zero answers. I do remember every single person. We went through the 5 stages of grief. I mean, it happened to all of us, no matter what level we were at. I remember telling my employees, it's okay, don't worry, we're gonna be back in like 2 weeks and it'll be okay. and again, I had no idea what was coming. So we went through all stages of grief. Every single one of my employees were furloughed and on unemployment. Myself, I went on unemployment. I never thought as a general dentist I would ever have to collect unemployment, but I did. So we were closed for a total of 7 weeks. In those 7 weeks, I only saw a few emergency patients, but for the most part, we were shut down completely. In those 7 weeks, I remember I had like 42 Invisalign patients to somehow figure out what to do with their treatment and reschedule, try to get aligners to people. It was learning as you go. So the good news came on Monday, April 27th. We got good news from our governor down in Texas that, you guys can reopen. You guys have a decent amount of time to prepare. And so we started putting together our plans and protocols. Well, 3 days later, on April 30th, that was a Thursday, they decided to renege and basically change all the rules. And we had all these extra things that we had to change. And they said, you know what, by the way, you can open tomorrow morning. And so we had less than 12 hours notice of when we could reopen our practices. And most people were not prepared, myself included. And so that following Monday, May 4th, we reopened minus hygiene. It was the best decision I ever made, just because it was a lot of new plans and new protocols and moving parts in my office. And had we had hygiene, it would have been a little chaotic. So we did our first week without hygiene. And then Monday, May 11th, we decided to fully reopen. And so we've been reopened ever since. Things have been going well. I remember the month of June and July, they were great months. And so we are hopeful and trying to stay positive that we will continue along this trend. So I put in this little video here, and what this is showing is no matter how prepared you feel, sometimes you just have to be the first one to jump in the pool. And the reason I like to show this is I have a chocolate lab. Her name is Olive, and she goes to daycare a couple of days a week. She loves it. It gets all of her energy out. And her daycare recently put in a pool, and they asked me, they're like, would you mind if we use her for our promo video? And I said, no, of course. She loves to swim. And so, of course, I'm a crazy dog mom, and I got on and I watched the webcam and I wanted to see what was happening. And little did I know, she was going to be the first dog in the pool. And I found this just so comical because they say dogs and owners are very similar. I am one of those people that I tend to just jump first. I tend to just go for it, and I kind of figure it out as I go. Sometimes I have to change things, change processes, but a lot of what we had to deal with in COVID was just jumping into that swimming pool first and learning as we go. So what do we do now? That is what the question I get from so many doctors. The first thing I say is we need to focus on being the leaders for our friends, our families, and our communities. So many people are looking up to us, our staff members, and we just need to focus on how do we be a positive motivator for these people. I love this saying. It says, crisis will either bring out the best or the worst in people. Which one are you? And it's so true. I've seen so many people coming out of COVID, going through shutdown, and I saw a different side to some of my friends that I never knew existed. And so we need to focus on how are we going to make a positive change out of this? How are we going to come out stronger in the long run? So obviously we develop plans and protocols. If you don't have a plan and protocol by now, hopefully we should. So I developed plans and protocols with my team. I will tell you, what seemed like a perfect plan and a perfect protocol, it just wouldn't come easily. So we had to make changes as we went along. I tell doctors this: social media is your best friend right now. It's free, and it's the way to get news out to your patients. And I honestly still use social media to check out other businesses if they're open. I use it for restaurants to see what kind of menu they have or if they're having different hours. So social media is your best friend as a dental office right now to share with your patients what's going on in your practice and to keep them updated. And now's the time for a clean slate. If there's something you've wanted to do in your practice, right now is the perfect time to do it. Have you always wanted to do a morning huddle? Has it been block scheduling, scheduling your high production in the morning and your low production in the afternoon? Has it been your phone skills or scheduling unscheduled treatment or hygiene appointments, financial arrangements, anything that you can think of that you've wanted to do? Now is the perfect time to do it. And a lot of doctors ask me, I use Invisalign in my practice, but a lot of doctors ask me, are new Invisalign patients still there? Are there still going to be patients who want to do treatment, or is it still going to happen? And I said, yes, of course there are. If you don't believe it, neither will your team nor your patients. And so you need to have that positive outlook. I have been doing a crazy amount of Invisalign cases since I came back from COVID, and I'm just trying to keep up now. And then the last thing is we need to practice gratitude. This seems so obvious, but it's those small acts of kindness that really goes a long way with patients. Doing just small things for your staff members, showing them that you appreciate them. I remember I got my staff all Starbucks the first day we came back, and I really just thanked them for hanging out with me, for staying with me through all this time, because it was hard on us as dentists, but I know my staff members went through the ringer as well. And so we need to remember always to practice gratitude. So this video that I'm going to show you is what we posted on our social media the first day that we came back to practice. And we wanted to just tell our patients what to expect when they came into the office. Hey everyone, Dr. Christina Blacher here. We are so excited to be finally reopened and wanted to share with you the changes that we're making in the office and what you can expect when you come in for your appointment. was our ideal protocols, as we like to call it. Obviously, the first day, things were a little rocky. And I think a lot of you can also remember your first day coming back. Things did not go perfectly smooth. And so we did have to make some changes to our protocols. One change we had to make is we had too many steps. And so we were trying to prevent patients from signing, paper. We wanted to keep things paperless or just clean. And so the paper consent form that we started out with, we actually wound up laminating that and having patients sign the laminated consent form with a whiteboard marker. That way you can actually wipe all of that down after you scan it into their chart. And so that made it a lot easier for us. We also have digital signature pads, but in the moment, the laminator was what we came up with. I remember I had patients sitting in the parking lot waiting to come in, and I was shoving paper through a laminator to try to get this done. The other thing we incorporated was what I like to call the bucket system. And so we had too many people running around trying to find thermometers, asking if it was clean or dirty. It just wasn't working for us. And so what we implemented was the bucket system. So we have a clean bucket and a dirty bucket. It sits on our front desk where we pick up our patients. And so when we went out to the parking lot, our assistants and hygienists would pick up the clean bucket. It would have the consent form with the whiteboard marker in it. It would have the thermometer and then a little half sheet of paper with some questions on it. They would take that out to the car, do everything that they needed to do, and then bring it back in and set it on the front desk. And then my front desk would wipe everything down, scan things in, and then get it ready for the next person. That really helped us because they didn't have to run around the office, find the thermometer, ask if it was clean or dirty, and it just streamlined the process a lot. And so that is what we have continued to do, and that has really worked well. So these are my two forms that we use. This is the consent form that we have laminated. We use a whiteboard marker for that. And then we also have a little half sheet. It just had a couple of questions on it. The biggest thing I use the half sheet for is I record which staff member patients come in contact with. So if somebody saw a hygienist, or if they saw a front desk, or if they came within 6 feet of an assistant, we write down their initials and we put that in the charts. That way, if somebody does call and report that they were positive, I can go back in my notes and I can see who they came in contact with. And so that has really helped us as well. We also use a checklist to make sure we're doing all the steps. We take temperatures, do the COVID consent, and do the mouthwash. I know we've all had our fair share of PPE struggles, but this is my hygienist, Kelly. She's actually pregnant, and trust me, the PPE was a struggle for her, having to take breaks and get overheated. And so trust me, I know what we've all been through. As far as PPE, we're pretty much all doing the standards. I know KN95s, N95s, we're wearing those. We have level 1 masks over them. We have face shields if necessary. We have our disposable jackets. I know N95s and KN95s are hard to come by, and so we spray them with Cavicide and reuse them, and we use the brown bag system for reusing our masks. So the question is, can we still talk about clear aligners? So many doctors have really been concerned, coming out of COVID, a lot of patients don't have a ton of income, or they have been on unemployment. Can we still talk about clear aligners? Can we still talk about Invisalign? And the answer is, of course we can. And if we don't talk about it now, we're actually doing the patient a disservice. So I want to teach y'all how I started looking at cases differently and how I started talking to patients about alignment. I think no matter if you graduated dental school in this year or if you graduated 20 years ago, we were taught not to focus on alignment and not to focus on orthodontics. In dental school, we were taught, is that a 2 millimeter or a 3 millimeter pocket, or is that crown margin sealed? We were not taught to focus on alignment. So the first picture you see here, the single tooth molar, if you see that walk into your office today, what's the first thing you're going to think? You're going to think, holy cow, that tooth needs a root canal, and it needs one right now. If this patient doesn't schedule or doesn't do this root canal today, they're going to be calling me on a weekend or a holiday because this tooth is going to blow up on them. We put such a priority on this. But when we see the second picture here walk into our office, do we react the same way? We don't. We just weren't trained to look at it that way. In reality, this second picture of the full arch is going to do more damage in the future than one tooth. Those cusps are going to fracture around that amalgam. Those crowded teeth in the anterior are going to cause periodontal disease. There is way more issues going on with this second picture, but we were not trained to look at it that way. And so once we start changing our attitude and how we look at patients, we're going to start seeing Invisalign and clear aligners on everybody. Same thing with abfractions. I used to see abfractions and get super excited. and was like, yes, buccal composite, easy, done, in and out. But we have to remember that abfractions are an occlusion issue. They come from those teeth like grinding and hitting all day long in the wrong forces. And it's no matter how many buccal composites you put in there, they are not going to stay. They're likely going to fall out. You're likely going to have to drill deeper or eventually do a crown or even a root canal. And by the end of the day, this patient might have put $5,000 into one tooth where they can spend $5,000 and align their entire mouth. And so we need to think about this from a different way. As soon as you do that, you will start to see Invisalign and alignment on everyone. And so I like to talk about the experience. It's all about the experience. I believe spreading positivity and always creating a positive experience for patients is so important. So how I create a positive experience for my patients is utilizing a digital scanner. I have iTero in my office. And what we do is we actually scan every single hygiene patient and we look at their bite. We look at their occlusion. Occlusion is so important to see. Are they hitting heavy? I use tools with our iTero to focus on how heavy patients are hitting. So any areas that patients are hitting that are shown in red will be areas they're hitting heavy. And over time, those teeth will actually fracture and break and wear down. And patients, I tell patients, you know, you might have to spend thousands of dollars in the future on really expensive treatment like root canals and crowns, but we can actually prevent all of that from happening by aligning your bite and by aligning your teeth. And I utilize so many different tools with our digital scanner, and that really has helped transform my practice, bring a positive experience to patients. And I've been doing lots of clear aligners, especially coming out of COVID. When you start talking about it from a preventative standpoint, patients understand and they will come on board. So something I do is a smile assessment. I kind of went over this already, but I call it a smile assessment. You can call it a dental health scan, whatever you want, but I utilize my iTero and we introduce it as a complimentary smile assessment to evaluate the bite. We don't introduce it as an Invisalign scanner or a clear aligner scanner or anything like that. We just introduce it as a complimentary tool to look at your bite. And patients love this. We take a digital scan of every single hygiene patient and we look at the viewer in there and we look at their bite. This person had a bite shown and he was hitting so heavy on all of his anterior teeth. I never, ever want to see red on anterior teeth. And I told him, I said, you know, if you keep going down this route, you're probably going to lose some of those teeth. And he understood that and he started clear aligner treatment that day. I show them their bite issues. A lot of patients, once they understand, they actually will come to you and be like, okay, I get it. How do I fix this? And then we have an outcome simulator. I can show them what their teeth would look like before and after right on the spot. I show them models. I go through what a case looks like, and then I get them excited. So many patients will not get excited if you aren't there to cheer them on. And so I am seriously the cheerleader. I come in and I tell somebody, you know, your life is going to be forever changed, and I can't wait to go through this with you. This is one more case I want to show you. So this one hits close to home. This is actually my husband. And when he was in for his hygiene appointment last year, we scanned him. And I said, yeah, you are hitting heavy a little bit on some of your front teeth, but I will do Invisalign on you whenever I get around to it. That's basically what I told him. And I made the mistake of letting him come and watch one of my study clubs. And he clearly knows how I feel about this and how we talk about this with our patients. Well, I was at a meeting in Miami, Florida in February, and he calls me and he said, I am so upset with you. And I was like, why are you upset with me? And he said, because I chipped my front tooth and it's because you haven't started Invisalign on me yet. And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was my fault. And he was like, yes, I was hitting heavy on my front teeth and now my tooth is chipped. And so I came home, I fixed his front tooth, we got everything nice. We went home that night and he chipped it again. And so you better believe he got Invisalign treatment in the middle of COVID. He has COVID hair there. But he got Invisalign treatment to align his bite, and it is now improving his alignment. And so this doesn't just happen to random people. This can happen to your own spouse. And so this just goes to show you this is happening to everyone around us. And so when we start looking at things differently and talking about it differently, we will see it on everyone. I also love our digital scanner. We can actually diagnose caries. We have an infrared technology on it. I can look at caries. We can take screenshots. We have intraoral photo capabilities. There is so much education that can be used with a digital scanner to help patients understand what's going on in their mouth. So the other thing I've been utilizing a lot during COVID is virtual appointments. As many virtual appointments as I can do, I try to. And this has really helped eliminate chair time, having extra PPE, or just coming in contact with other patients. And so I try to utilize virtual appointments through as much as I can. I use it for progress follow-ups, for clear aligners. I will go over pending treatment with them. I can actually share my screen and bring up their scan and show them what's happening in their mouth. If I want to just review a treatment plan with someone again. Emergencies, this is what I used during COVID while we were shut down. I used for triaging emergencies. So we all know as dentists, when somebody calls and they say, hey, I'm swollen, we all know that they could either be swollen way out to the side, or it could be like their little papilla that's swollen. And so I use virtual appointments to triage emergencies and see, okay, is this a true emergency? Do I have to go in right now, or can this wait? I also use virtual appointments for new patients, just having them get to know me before they have to come into the office. It develops the level of trust and the relationships. And you can also use it just for some general follow-ups, looking at like post-op implant placement or extractions. Anything you want to do, you can utilize it. And so I love virtual appointments. I try to utilize it as much as possible. So I have 5 tips on how to provide virtual appointments. Number 1, make patients aware. If patients don't know that you offer this, they're not going to utilize the system. So we blast this out on social media, emails, marketing, as much as we can. We tell patients this is what we're offering. Even when we were closed, we were sending out emails and telling patients, schedule a virtual consult. We are here for you. Ease of scheduling. We use an online service that patients can request an appointment if they want to do a virtual consult. And then connect with your patients. Just because we aren't face-to-face doesn't mean you can't connect with someone. We're having to do a lot on computer screens now, unfortunately. And so you can still utilize this to connect and build that relationship with your patients. And keep it organic. Involve a team member if you need to. I involve my assistant all the time. Sometimes if it's just a quick follow-up, my assistant will just pop in and take care of that for me. If it's a new patient, obviously I would like to see and meet the new patient myself, but feel free, involve a team member if necessary. And then keep it short and sweet, 15 to 30 minutes maximum. That is usually the best time frame. It doesn't have to drag on so long. All right, so Terry, I will let you take over from here.
All right, Chris, those are just such awesome tips. I mean, you always inspire me. I love your energy, and a lot of those things that you shared, you know, we're both using in both our Hawaii group practice and our private practice here. I really love the one where you had the ability to take note of which staff came in contact with the patient. So if something did happen, that you'd be able to go back and contact trace them really well. So that was a nice tip I picked up from you. And I just love everything else you shared. We're doing so many similar things in our practices. And so I just want to say thank you for sharing all that. That being said, I mean, look at this craziness in this environment we're dealing with COVID right now. These are just some things that we have in our practices. We're fogging the HOCl in our operatories after every patient procedure. We've got these HEPA filters going. We've got the plexiglass everywhere. all kinds of crazy masks and gowns like Chris was saying. And it's just, it's a crazy time. We have to all be so careful with this virus swirling. And I know, people out there are really struggling dealing with having to wear all this PPE. It's just not like it was in the old days. And really, the thing I miss most is that face-to-face contact where, you can share a smile with a patient and really enhance your communication with them. So I think that's the hardest part about this COVID for me, is wearing all that stuff and then not feeling like I'm in direct contact while I'm communicating. So I'm going to jump out a little bit from what Chris was saying and kind of talk about something that I think is important in these times. And that is, with so many people being out of work, working from home, a lot of people on unemployment, finances have come to the forefront with our patients. And I think it's really important that we take a look at how this can affect acceptance of our treatment plans. And really, when I think about it and I look around at why dental patients, don't accept our excessive treatment plans, it's really because we don't feel the connection. They don't feel the connection. And like I said, a lot of it has to do is it's more challenging now with all these masks in front of us and these shields and all this PPE. There's a barrier now that exists between us. So we actually have to try even harder to communicate and connect with our patients. And when we're having that conversation, it's so important to let them know that you're listening to them. I think one of the biggest problems we have as doctors is that we feel like we know everything, that the patients can't contribute anything to the conversation. I really take it to heart that it's really important for us to sit back and listen and answer their questions instead of just spieling off a bunch of knowledge that we think we have because we're doctors. And I think the most important thing whenever we present treatment plans these days is to really share the value of what we're offering them in terms of treatment, and really having it be something that they feel like they're going to want to take care of because they've seen the value that you presented, right? And then last and most important, I think, is that, utilizing a treatment financial coordinator and then offering some type of financing option, third-party finance or an in-house financing, that we can help our patients, in this time that we're all faced with in terms of struggling because of job cutbacks or unemployment or limited hours or such. So what I'm here to share with you is that it's really important that we bring a third-party finance option to the forefront with our patients. And we use a third-party finance company in both our practices. And I got to tell you, before I thought it was valuable. I got to tell you, 70% of our aligner starts come from third-party financing, where we can eliminate that down payment and really keep interest payments to a minimum and really get them into treatment in a comfortable way where they don't feel stressed financially. And I think one of the big problems, I've been practicing a number of decades now, one of the big problems that we used to do a ton of in-house financing with our patients. And what we found, it was just a lot of work, really sending out those monthly bills and then having our employees' valuable time utilized and calling patients, trying to make collections. And so what we found is by offering a third-party finance option that we've really effectively enhanced our practice cash flow. And we also feel that if we use the old school way of doing financing in-house, by doing in-house finance plans and chasing them for payments, that we find that we over time kind of thought that we were losing almost 10% of our collections. And so really that comes back into play. The reason I bring that up is because most of these third-party financing options do charge us dentists a merchant fee to utilize their package. And so I guess what I'm saying is that if you look at it in the long run, if you're doing in-house financing and spending all that time with your employees, chasing bills and then writing off 10% of them manually, you actually come out way ahead utilizing a third-party finance, paying the merchant fee, and getting that money right up front and really enhancing your cash flow. So in this time of COVID, I think it's really important that you all take a step back and really maybe entertain the opportunity of taking on a third-party finance option with your patients so that they feel more comfortable taking on your expensive treatment plans. That being said, I'm going to jump into, Chris was talking a lot about virtual care and how she does these awesome virtual consults and utilizes Instagram and social digital media to really let patients know that she's put her arms around doing virtual care and offering that as a service to her patients. And I want to let you know, I've taken it kind of a step further with my aligner therapy with my Invisalign. I want to show you a sample case of how I'm doing aligner therapy in this COVID environment to kind of cut down on patient appointments, kind of conserve PPE, and really just keep everyone a little bit safer. I mean, if we can be more efficient and have less patient appointments, then we're really helping out in the long term by preserving PPE and keeping our staff, patients, and myself more safe. So what I'm doing is I'm actually, because I've done so much Invisalign over the years, is that I'm really comfortable knowing which moves I'm really able to accomplish easily with aligner therapy. And most of those are moves that are just simply, expansion or uprighting of posterior teeth, or what we call proclinating, or pushing out the anterior teeth and expanding the arches to, resolve crowding by harvesting space from increased arch length. And so what I've done is, in this case, for an example, is that I've actually started the case without attachments. And really by not using attachments, I don't have to bring the patient in and then put on attachments and bond them and then clean up the flash off them and then create aerosols, right? So it's really eliminating that aerosol appointment and eliminating unnecessary appointments by using this treatment strategy. And by doing this sample case right here, I was able to obtain all of the moves with just simple 15 weeks of aligner 7-day swaps without attachments. And you can see that here's the results with those simple moves, that we were able to attain some really nice occlusion and keep things really safe. So the bottom line with this patient is that I treated her really in only 2 appointments, and one really just live appointment. That I would want you to entertain is that, for example, bringing your patient in and doing your aligner consultation, in this case Invisalign, where I'm really just taking the time to secure all her dental records, do her scans, take her pictures, review what the Invisalign treatment process is, and then kind of go over all the things she will need to do once she gets her aligners in terms of how she will wear them, for what time period, and then how often she'll swap them out, kind of explaining everything up front in that first live appointment, really getting a bang for your buck when you've got them in the chair that one time. And then going forward with this patient, what I did, because this occurred over the time we were closed in COVID, I know Chris was saying they were closed from the middle of March till the beginning of May. In California here, we were actually closed from the middle of March all the way till July. And so I had a ton of patients that were in Invisalign aligner therapy that I had to keep rolling. And so what I was doing was kind of playing Invisalign Santa Claus. I would load up my car with all of their boxes of aligners, and I'd have all their cell phone numbers on a list. And I was kind of just cruising around the neighborhood around my practice and being Santa Claus and dropping off their aligners at their houses, kind of like the mailman. And because, like, for instance, in this case, I had given her all of her instructions for wear and care throughout the treatment, and because she wasn't having to come in for IPR or attachments, she was able to, start right away and wearing the aligners. And I was able to follow up with her a few times on our virtual platform using Zoom, just to kind of track her and make sure she wasn't having any problems with her aligner care. And then in the end, we did one final virtual care thing on Zoom, and I saw that she had tracked perfect and everything was lined up well. So I just simply ordered her retainers off her end stage of her treatment plan. And then she came in one more time, a second appointment, and we took her final pictures, which you see right here, right now, and gave her retainers and did some in-house bleaching. And that really satisfied the whole treatment for that case. So really the bottom line why I present this is maybe for you guys to consider on these simple cases where you're just having these really easy tipping, expansion, proclination moves. Consider not using attachments to eliminate aerosols and conserve PPE and keep your staff safe. And then really maybe encompass in grasping the virtual platform like Chris talked about to follow them through in terms of tracking availability. And then really you'll end up getting nice results with real conservative numbers of appointments. And I think in this environment, this is a strategy that we've been using a lot that's really been really kind of cool and has really helped out to minimize these number of appointments. The other thing we've been doing a lot of throughout COVID is when we get shipments, for instance, from a line with all our aligners, typically we would have in the past all these patients come in and we'd make appointments for them, and they would come in and we would give them their aligners, and we would utilize all the unnecessary PPE and all the checking in process. I know Chris was showing you that video. We do the same thing. We have patients, come into the garage in their car and they text us, and then we do the pre-screening protocol, go through all the questions, how they've been feeling, have they been exposed to anyone, et cetera, et cetera. It's just the ability to eliminate those appointments right now, I think, is a huge hedge. And so you can see here, this is a crazy day I had during COVID shutdown where I got tons of aligner shipments. And I basically, what I do to satisfy that is we're forward shipping the aligners directly to the patient's home address. And you can do this really easily by simply setting up a United States Postal Service account on their website. You can put your credit card in, and then every time a case comes in right now, we will go ahead, when we feel it's justified, we'll go ahead and just simply print a shipping label and then stick it on the box and then give it back to the mailman and let it go directly to the patient's house, saving that appointment with them and conserving PPE. And then like Chris said, we have the ability now with this crazy Zoom platform and all these platforms we're using to virtually communicate with our patients. We have the ability to follow up and track their treatment and limit the number of unnecessary appointments. So this is something cool we're doing, is just really using the forward shipping as a tool to minimize patient appointments. So Chris, that's pretty much it for my segment of this. So why don't we go to some of the questions that the panelists have, and we'll answer them. You want to go ahead and start off by reading the first question?
Yeah, that was awesome, Terry. I loved that case. That looked awesome. I definitely will probably be utilizing that here more in the future. So let's see. We've got a couple questions come in here. It says, the first one says, have either of you had staff members leave or not return to work?
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
I got to say, we've been really fortunate in both our Hawaii practice and our California practice. I've only had one employee not return to work, and believe me, it wasn't because she didn't want to. She's kind of my main assistant here in California. And the reason she didn't come back is because she's actually 5 months pregnant. And she just, her doctor just did not feel comfortable having her work in a dental environment. I know we've heard reasons that I guess pregnant women are more susceptible to being hospitalized if they do get COVID. And she actually got kind of freaked out because her husband's family actually had 13 people in their immediate family test positive for COVID. And really, she kind of got freaked out by that. They had one of her family members worked in a dialysis unit and was exposed to a COVID patient, and then brought it home and had a big family gathering. And boom, all of a sudden, 13 people in the family got tested positive. A couple of them ended up having to go to ICU. They're all doing fine now, but that kind of freaked her out. And so when she told her doctor about it, her doctor's like, you know what, let's put you on disability and kind of get through this pregnancy thing first and foremost and keep you safe. So that would be the only the only staff member I've had in both practices that have not returned because of COVID. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I have to be honest. I actually lost a staff member. She came back, and then a temp agency actually picked her up, offered her a little more money, and it was unfortunate. I really loved her. But yeah, the dental industry, just in general right now, we've all had hard times. I know it's hard to find good staff members sometimes. And so we're all kind of going through the same thing here.
I think it's cool. I think it's crazy also. I know here in California, it's been historically the last 3 or 4 years really hard to get good dental assistants. There's just not an available pool. It's so expensive to live here in Silicon Valley that they kind of can't afford to live in this area, and they commute from long distances. And I have a lot of colleagues that are really struggling to find staff. The good news that, or the flip side of the coin, is now that we're in COVID and a lot of staffs have cut back, a lot of offices have cut back on staffs, that I've actually had 3 or 4 calls in the last few weeks from people actually looking for jobs as assistant or front desk. So I guess that's the silver lining in it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I definitely know there's been a lot of movement in the dental field. And so there are definitely good people out there. You just got to find them. All right. Okay. So the second question I see here, it says, are you finding patients are wanting to do new treatment or previously treatment planned work? In my office, like I said, we had a great June and a really good July. And so I'm finding patients are still on board. And if anything, they're wanting to do it more now than ever, because either if it's something that they've been waiting to do, let's say if it's Invisalign, they've been seeing this on social media all during COVID and they're like ready to get going. Or even if it's treatment planning, crowns, fillings, things that have been outstanding, I think they're now seeing, okay, if I don't do something now, this could turn into a bigger situation. And so we've actually had really good success with patients doing new treatment and previously treatment planned work. What about you, Terry?
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, I feel like I got left off the boat, it left the harbor, and I wasn't on it when I heard all my colleagues across the nation have incredible months like you're talking about, Chris, in June and July when we were still closed. I mean, I was just hearing so many doctors saying, oh my God, we had a record month this month. Like, how is that even possible? But then I look back at it, everyone was getting, these stimulus checks. People weren't going out to dinner as much, spending money on restaurants and travel. And I think really the level of savings increased over that time period. And so I think that's what led to these crazy, record productive months, like you mentioned. I think that in our Hawaii practice, it's really surprised me the last 2 months that I've gone over there since reopening, the number of, aligner Invisalign cases that I've started. It actually is kind of blowing my mind. How people are really, taking on new treatments. So I think, like you say, Chris, people haven't been hindered by the COVID shutdown in terms of accepting treatment plans.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, we got another question. It says, are patients more financially conscious coming out of COVID? I would say, yes, everyone's financially conscious. But again, people aren't sending kids to camps and spending all this money on extracurricular activities. And so people are more financially conscious, but they're actually still doing treatment plans. And I've even had some big treatment plans recently.
Yeah, and also, like I was mentioning, when we were talking a little bit earlier, is that for those patients that actually do have financial concerns, that's why I feel it's really important that we offer that third-party financing option, to give patients the ability to start big treatments, whether it be aligner therapy or even regular dentistry, to allow them to start these large treatments without having to dip into their savings, which they're a little more cautious about going into right now. I think is a big hedge. And so that's why I really have found the last few months that we've been doing a lot of treatment, but also that a lot of patients have been utilizing third-party financing to start these big cases. And so I think that, as doctors right now, that's important for us to have in our offices as a tool to help convert these expensive treatment plans we're proposing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. What I tell some of my friends and colleagues who don't use third-party financing is right now cash flow is tight. We're all really centered on cash flow in our practices. And with using a third-party financing, you can get all of your full payment within a couple of days of closing a case. And so it's really nice, especially on the cash flow side of it.
Yeah, huge cash flow advantage.
Awesome. All right, let's see. Another question we have says, With new surges in many states, are you finding a change in patients? Oh, this is a good question. I know that Texas went through a large surge in the past month, and to be honest, we didn't see a ton of change. We had a couple of elderly patients or people with medical conditions. Well, obviously, we have full understanding for those patients not wanting to come in, but I think our patients have kind of gotten used to the new protocols. They know that like dental offices are some of the cleanest places you could go into. I think a grocery store is probably not even as clean as a dental office. So I think that patients have come to understand that we are taking the precautions. We are sanitizing everything we need to, and we're keeping ourselves, our staff, and our patients safe. So I really haven't seen a lot of change since we have had a recent surge. What about you, Terry?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say I can answer that in both from both perspectives. I know, and let's talk about my San Francisco practice. You know, here in the Bay Area, we've had, you know, like you in Texas, Chris, high levels of COVID cases going around. And so, like you said, I think our older patients or our immunocompromised patients have been a little more reticent in terms of wanting to come in just to get routine cleanings and stuff. I know there's a number of them that have been, you know, delaying or putting it off. And so that's understandable. But on the same token, we're still seeing tons of patients here in California coming in for treatment and seemingly not being affected by it all. And I agree with you, Chris. I mean, we've been doing infection control. You know, we were trained to do it really well in dental school, and we've been doing it over the years as practitioners. And I actually agree with you. I think dental offices can almost be some of the safest environments to be hanging out in. That being said, in Hawaii now, especially on the Big Island where I was practicing earlier this week, I mean, literally, there's only 2 cases on the Big Island. And so it's a much more relaxed atmosphere. Like, I don't hear any patients, you know, saying they don't want to come in. I think that it just seems like business as usual. I mean, we're obviously still using all the same levels of PPE that we are using in California. And I think over in Hawaii, people are a little better about wearing masks. But I think that the change that we see here in California is really, like you were saying, Chris, it's really just those patients who are kind of elderly or more immunocompromised that we're seeing holding off a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. All right, looks like we got one more question here. It says, what are your plans for September/October due to getting a quote unquote hole in the schedule 6 months from the time we were all closed? This is another really good question. Terry, I'll let you start with that one.
I don't know, Chris. You start with that one. I don't even know how to answer that, because I'm thinking in that hole, I'm going to go on vacation.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how much we try, we are going to have a slow September, October. Hopefully it doesn't go into November, because that's 6 months from when we were all shut down. I mean, we moved hygiene patients, and I know in my office, we're trying to schedule our perio maintenances and our perio patients to try to fill that. We're also going to do some marketing and maybe some promotions to say, if you schedule in the month of September, you get like whitening or a discount on something like that. We're trying to still be able to make those months profitable. And we definitely need to focus on that sooner than later. We need to have a plan going into it, or instead of getting to September and then being like, oh my gosh, we have all these days without any patients. And so I definitely think we need to plan for it and come up with what's going to work for our offices.
I think that's great. I think that that's brilliant. I mean, I think that's definitely a great time to run promotions, right? Cannot go wrong doing that in slow times, running promotions. I just think that, you know, what I've noticed is that really we're just not seeing the same amount of volume of patients on a daily basis. I mean, we're actually not even using one operatory between others to try and, you know, create patients feeling a little safer and a little more social distancing within the dental office. And so we've really kind of tried to have a strategy of not only cutting in volume, but trying to make what appointments we do see be more impacting and be more profitable. And we're trying to kind of create more treatment and be more efficient in our treatment. So we're doing a lot more, you know, quadrant dentistry, or trying to get things done that prior would have taken, 2 or 3 appointments. We're doing longer appointments because we're seeing less volume. So I think going forward for us, we're not going to be super impacted by that 6-month thing because we're kind of stretching treatment out. And I know my front desk scheduler told me last week here in California, we're like booked in hygiene for like 4 months. So I think everyone's going to be okay. I think we need to take a deep breath and realize that these are just hard times, that we need to be flexible. We need to be gracious, like Chris was saying. And really, I think we're all going to do just fine getting through this. And hopefully soon we'll have, cures and vaccines, and we'll get back to some normalcy.
Yeah, I love that, Terry. I want to end this because that was all the questions we had. I definitely want to end this. We both can end this in our own little way. But again, I'm going to kind of go off of what you just said. I think that we need to focus on how are we going to grow and how are we going to come out of this on the positive side? What things do we need to do? And focus on that and know that everything is going to be okay. We are going to be fine. I know people have a lot of anxiety. I know doctors having had anxiety with all the new PPE, all the changes in dentistry, and just know that we all are going to be okay. And we all are here to support each other in this. And so I just want to leave you with just always remember to stay positive, focus on what you're grateful for, and we will be stronger in the end.
I agree. I want to salute that. I mean, I think the same thing. I'm sure you, Chris, during the shutdown, like myself, we were in contact with our staffs, trying to really reassure them, let them know that we're doing everything possible to ensure their safety with the PPE and, gathering everything we could to make the environment here in our workplace as safe and comfortable as possible. And I think the most important thing, like you just said, is really letting our staffs and patients know that their safety is our number one concern. And so we never want to shortchange any efforts that we're putting forth to protect them going forward. And I think that, we as doctors, I mean, look, we need to adapt, obviously, because these are not easy times in a dental practice with all this crazy PP and the change of scheduling and the hours and everything that's involved. But I just want you all to stay positive out there and know that we're going to get through this and really be a team player with your staffs. I think that's the number one thing, is really be open arms, open ears, and really try to support them in these difficult times. And I want to thank you all for having Chris and I join you today. And I look forward to chatting more with you, and be safe out there. Aloha.
Thanks, Terry. Bye, everyone.
Thank you again, Dr. Blacher and Dr. Codington. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for Q&A tonight. Any unanswered questions will receive a reply via email in the next few days. You will receive your CE certificate of completion for tonight's event in about 2 weeks. Again, thank you to our commercial support this evening, Align Technology. For other informational webinars and CE opportunities, please visit dentallearning.net. Thank you again for joining us.